places you can shop in the one zone.
Yeah.
There's the shop and the marketplace.
Do you have any idea what they are? What they
Oh, they're like $1.
They're not that much. I
Yeah.
bought them. There's like a 50, there's like a 25 or 50.
Because I have my own that I do, but they're expensive.
Yeah, these are way less
Yeah.
expensive and they're pretty. The only thing I don't like is if you're like, yeah, you're greasy for some reason, or like you touched
Might
it
just-
or you're wet. Yeah. I do like going to Office Depot and getting that. I like the white folders
Yeah.
because they don't smudge. I get them in bulk on officedepot.com. So those are a little more expensive, but
I'll have to double check, but I think Rock Title helped me with mine. Fancy
Awesome.
white ones.
well, let's jump to it. I am really, really excited. It's 10 o'clock. Hey, how are you? Are you staying for
Good.
class or just stopping by to say hi?
I am staying for class.
Okay, then I'll make sure I give you a packet. Wanted it.
Thank
free.
you.
You can always pull up a chair. I guess I'm down. Yeah, there's. All right, so before we get started, oh yeah, Carla has a chair for you.
Yeah, you can sit next to me. I have things to talk to you about anyway.
Brian,
Scared.
Brian are here from our Rock Title. Hey, Jordana. And so I love that they're here. And so if you guys want to kick us off and say hi, then we will get going. You want me to bring you out of the chair? More than happy to. No, I can go get it. Oh, I got it. Bree, you're in charge, right?
Yep.
Do your thing, girl.
Hey, everyone. Bree Kruger with Rock Title. And if you need help with your marketing or lead gen, I'm happy to help you. And I would love to sit down with you. I also do quarterly business planning, the strategy behind marketing. So let me know if you would just like to do. And then I'll have Art introduce himself.
Well, most people probably, I know Buzz knows me, Carla knows me, I know Mandy knows me. I know the gentleman knows me, he goes in the back incognito with his glasses on back there.
Scott, yeah.
But I'm a senior escrow officer. I work upstairs. I work with Julia. I work with Bree and Lynn as well. I know you know both of them. They're amazing marketing. So if you need anything, if you need advice, or they can help you with anything, they're your people to go to for marketing. I would like to be your person to go to for escrow. I've been doing this for 30 years. Been seen a lot of, closed a lot of stuff. So, you know, like Julia says, we can help you with the sign project. You got something you don't know what it looks like, how dirty it is. You know, we can clean it up for you before you get ready to put on market and you take it back to closing. So I have some cards here if you want some, and then I don't know. Bree told you about the 50% escrow discount that we offer on listings as well. We have I have some coupon flyers that too. All right. Thank you.
Greg, are you joining us for class?
No.
No? Are you or are you not? Okay. Well, I'm really excited today because, well, I am not excited to say that it is my last mastermind with you for quite some time in this capacity. I am excited to say, hey, let's all get on the same page. So when your name comes across my desk one day, if it comes across my desk, I could say, oh, they know their stuff. It must be the other side. Right, which I already know y'all.
And it come across your desk.
Yeah, let's keep that one off, but just Scott's mic, and I want to make sure you guys are taken care of. Also, something I was told by one of the professionals is that years ago, they used to hold classes down at the Arizona Department of Real Estate. And the department decided a long time ago that they're a punishment center and really didn't care about us. And they really advertised it that way, didn't they?
Yeah.
I mean, we were always excited to see Commissioner Lowe, but we knew, let's not have her know anything, right? And then anybody working at the department was very standoffish. Like when any of my friends went to work at the department, all of a sudden I was not allowed to talk to them. Like it was like cut off. This is not going to be that way moving forward. And so when you see courses and things and task forces and questions, please be the first to volunteer. I want my realtor family to be the ones down there saying this is what we're dealing with on the front lines. And you will never be held to a different level than another practitioner on a topic unless, you know, you're owner agent or have a conflict of interest just by going to a class. Honestly, if someone decides to practice something outside their area of competence, that's on them. That's not on their, they know better, right? So we want to always make sure that we're on the right page. So my goal for this, when I was thinking, what could I end on, was the biggest misunderstanding in our contracts. And that's addendums versus notices. There is no such thing as an addendum that does not go to the lender and the escrow company. If you know it's going to hold up closing, should it be on an addendum? No, it should be on a tool or a notice form, right? So that's what we're going to go over, some basics of when to include something, when not to. Now, I know you're going to be really upset with me, Lloyd, but I did not put the, it's when it's an unincorporated area.
Affidavit.
Affidavit.
Yeah.
I'm like, let me define it. Because that's a disclosure topic instead.
Yeah.
But I need to squash myths before I go. And so in front of you, I made a little short cover letter, and I hope you can use it moving forward. And I gave you all a folder. Here's your folder. Because I want you to keep this. I need you to know the standards of our industry. Addendum A is an addendum. Addendum Y is an addendum. Addendum 1 is an addendum to the contract. So many agents out there say, well, Mandy, if I put addenda A down, I don't have to give it to the lender, right? Because it's A, not 1. And I'm like, you could call it addendum cat. And guess what? It's an addendum to the contract. It's just, I need something that is a logical order, right? To know what one supersedes what one. But at the end of the day, it's not about, hey, Lucinda. Oh. Hey, guys.
Were you in a cat fight over the weekend?
Oh, well, we don't want to leave you out. So here's my packet. This is, okay. And here, you can have this too. And then if you could, hi Barb, could you, look at somebody else's stuff with them? Well, we need you to have a comfy seat. Okay. So I want to make sure everybody is, see this last one? I knew I should have gotten like 50 copies. This one's going to be like full through awesome.
He's
This is,
making you some
You got more folders? You're gonna need more folders too.
yeah, I'll get them later. It's all good. So are we all on the same page with that, guys? An addendum is an addendum is an addendum.
Agree.
I don't care what you number it. So in the future, when the other side says to you, well, it's addendum A, so we don't need to send it to the lender. What are you going to say in return?
Yes, you do.
Yes, you do.
And they go, well, I checked with my broker and they said you don't have to.
Your broker doesn't know
Yes, you
shit.
do.
Your broker doesn't know shit.
Can you ask your broker to call the legal hotline?
Yes.
When you're changing a buyer's inspection notice, this is when it's most improperly used. We go to renegotiations and people start putting the repairs and commission changes on an addendum. And they're like, well, it's addendum A. And everything else is 1, 2, 3. And I'm like, no, we have 1, 2, 3 A. We need to redo the buyer's inspection notice. It doesn't reopen any timelines, but if everyone's mutually on the same page, shouldn't it get signed the same day it's done? That's the tool you redo, because does the lender and the escrow company ever get a copy of the buyer's inspection notice?
No.
And if it's a commission credit or a commission change, what should that be on? A form between the brokers and an email, but you need to actually sign by the broker. So just let you know, Ron Copus owns your commission. It's really that simple. You don't own it. You have the mindset that you own it. And the cool thing about Ron is he truly believes in all of us, and he doesn't believe as it is his money. Like, he doesn't view it that way. And he wants you to do whatever you want, for the most part, as long as you pay your ROG dues, he doesn't care. But at the end of the day, he's the one that has to sign off to agree. And so does the other broker. And I love Bree's comment. It means your broker doesn't know jack, right? Because I've had it on the weekends where people are like, well, I can't get my broker's signature until Monday. Okay, I'm just going to ask, are you with the right brokerage? Because like, I don't know about you, but when I'm in the heat of negotiations and I need a 1% change, it's not that hard to DocuSign a piece of a document and say, hey, FYI, could you check your email and sign off on this? I'm in the middle of contract negotiation, right? That's the one piece. If you sign something to me in the last 5.5 years, or like, I will sign it. Like, I will trust you. It's your money. I will sign it. Right? So make sure that we understand that that is not on an addendum. All right, so I'm gonna switch over for all those on Zoom to the actual form so you can see them. So again, we were talking about the addendum in 1, 2, 3 and ABC. Next one I put in your order of awesomeness is the HOA addendum. And yeah, I double-sided everything because I decided I was using lots of trees. The reason I printed all these for you guys, by the way, is because I don't learn using the computer. I learn by writing and touching and feeling and rereading without my eyes going cross looking at a screen. So that's why I printed these out for you instead of just having you look at a computer screen. I really suggest if you struggle with any of these documents today, that you go over them in writing several times on your own and write out a list of questions on them and ask, right? And have a small meeting. You guys do know each other here, right? Barb, I'll have you do an intro soon. Sorry.
Oh, you're fine.
And we're just glad you're here. So get a group of you guys together. You know, call each other, say, hey, can we get 3 or 4 and have a mastermind just between us in the office? I'm kind of lost on these topics and I was wondering if you were too. I am going to guarantee you anything that you feel like you're lacking in with base of knowledge on these forms, somebody else feels the same way. Like, I guarantee you that because every single week I get the same kinds of questions from professionals that aren't even working the same deals. So it's always the same topics. All right. So the HOA addendum, let's be clear what page 1 is. Who fills out page 1?
That's gonna be my
Seller.
first question.
The seller
So it is.
The listing agent?
or the seller.
So-
The seller should.
The listing agent,
Seller or
it gets information from the seller.
This is always a big topic at the TC Mastermind.
The seller.
Go on. Why is it a big topic of the transaction coordinator
Because-
mastermind?
Like, technically, like, we understand the seller should fill this out, but the seller doesn't like know all these weird little fees and all the intricacies of the capital improvement stuff and how to put it on the form in an agent verbiage. So
Okay.
it's,
So they can filter it out and have the seller review it and sign it.
yeah, but it's kind of like 50-50. TCs either have the sellers do it and then have to redo it, or the TCs.
Which the TC is acting on the
So it's
listing
like
agent's
calling-
behalf.
Calling the HOA to be sure the numbers are correct.
Exactly.
Okay, number 1,
So what's the real?
we overstep regularly in our industry.
No overstep.
Contacting the HOA on a seller's behalf is an overstep.
Okay.
It feels like the right thing to do, but do we investigate?
No.
Is that part of our description?
No.
But gosh, does it feel like we should, right?
Somebody should.
Right. It's the seller who is responsible for this piece of paper. That does not mean the listing agent, TC acts on the listing agent's behalf, cannot fill it out. But if the listing agent is going to fill this out, they need written instructions from the seller on the fees. And then the seller needs to re-review the form and sign the form. The seller's the one that calls and reconfirms the fees with the HOA. I know, that's why they hired us. Don't you love that, Sherry, when someone says to you, well, I hired you
Hired
because
you,
I don't
yeah.
have time to do it.
Yeah.
So what I do is I look at other listings to see what the fees are
Yeah.
and see if there's any confusion, because there's a lot of confusion in my own HOA. And then I send an email to the seller and say, what's the fee?
Verify.
Here's the HOA's number.
Mhm.
And then I verify with another agent on one of their listings how they got the fees.
Okay, but the thing is, you had the
I
seller
send the email.
verify.
You still put it back on.
I put it back on them and I always send them an email, even if I'm the one looking for the information, I always send them an email so they can confirm my email and I say, please respond. So if my ask gets in a ringer, I have the email.
And what does that create? It-
A paper trail,
Which is also known as, in my head,
WRS.
an audit trail.
yes.
So
Now,
always think, how do I develop an audit trail? Because at the end of the day, who does it cost money to on page 3 if they're incorrect most of the time?
Us.
No, the seller, which
Then it's us,
Our
we
side.
pay it out of our commission.
you should take a commission to me if you're the
Yeah.
one that made the mistake, right? Yeah,
You can send the HOA out through Breeze. with-
You can.
With the spuds for the seller to fill out.
you can send out all disclosure forms, which is page 1 through Breeze. Breeze is the new system through Sky Slope.
It's
Through
right down.
Arizona Realtors that it's something you can send it out a secure so they can autofill, the seller can autofill their disclosures. I didn't make a big thing of it yet because for our office, it's been out a few times and notified. But the reason I didn't make a big deal out of it yet was because like I just have people still coming off zip forms somehow and I'm very confused.
I'm one of those, I get it, I should just hire a TC and call it a day.
But yeah, page 1, I just want to make sure we're very clear on that. Also, read capital improvement fees to Ann's point. It says labeled as community reserve, asset preservation, capital reserve, working capital, community enhancement, future improvements or payments. Capital improvement fees are always negotiable. Okay, I don't care what the HOA says. This is what the HOA says. Well, usually the buyer pays them. Well, yeah, but usually is negotiable. So just because the HOA rep told the seller that the buyer should be paying them doesn't mean that's how the negotiations are going to work. What fees are required by the seller to be paid? And that's listed on what page of the HOA addendum? Page 3. And what fees are required to be paid for by the buyer?
No, prepaid.
Prepaid. So that leaves transfer fees. Your phone decided it loves you. That's
That's
my phone?
your phone.
Oh, that is so confusing. Did my children turn on my little listen button?
I don't know.
And does this, Barb, does this form directly impact your loan estimate?
Absolutely, yes. And what I was gonna say was the HOA, when you get to the adult communities addendum, in addition to this, they should coincide,
Yes,
because I've had issues where they conflict.
which is our next form we're gonna be going to.
And can I say something about the addendum?
The active adult,
The first one.
yeah, the HOA.
No, the first
Yeah.
addendum.
Oh, regular addendum?
Regular addendum. Just some bits of advice that I've encountered. One is if there's repairs to be made, and they're giving money in lieu of those repairs, not to put that on the addendum.
Yep, we covered that.
Okay, good. I missed that part. And then,
No.
and then the other part was, if there's any furniture conveying, not to put that on the contract anywhere, that it should be a separate bill of sale.
Yeah, a separate bill of sale, now that Barb brought that up, is a glorified garage sale and you should not be involved. I understand that you're pushing it back and forth, but you should not be involved unless it's a cash transaction and it's incorporated into the contract, at which time you're really selling real property and not personal property, and they're still required to close. And any personal property that does not convey will be the buyer will have to go after the seller after close of escrow.
Because what happens is sometimes they put it on the contract and I'm like, the appraiser does not like that.
Well, no, go ahead, Sherry.
Okay, so I get involved in a lot of bill of sales, but I have mostly cash transactions. But the thing is even if, and because I do a lot of snowbirds or did a lot of snowbirds, always the crap is in there, always. The crap goes with the house. And if you do nothing, it gets to be an issue, and it became an issue one time for the crap, the personal property. And so now I always do a bill of sale at 0 value and make everybody sign it, and it's in my file.
You know what else you could do if the crap is conveying at 0 value? And I love that. It's just like George Carlin says, it's your stuff and it's their shit.
Yeah.
Right, like George Carlin was not wrong. I played that the first time I taught ABR class without listening to the end of his skit. And I was like, and I like teaching, so maybe not write this part down in my review. But is in the purchase contract itself. if it's conveying at $0 anyways,
Mhm.
and it really doesn't make a difference if it stays or goes, write out the section of the contract that says all personal items will be removed prior to close of escrow. Allow it to stay. Now, if the buyer's buying it based on the fact that they're conveying this stuff, right? Then there is a separate bill of sale that needs to be done. But please note in your email, if this is done, that you say, this is outside my scope of expertise. This has nothing to do with your ability to close. This is at your own risk, right? In your email, because at the end of the day, it's not for us to enforce a bill of sale. You and I can't enforce it. They do that. We do it all the time, even in the beautiful city of Maricopa, which is Pinell County. A lot of those Canadian sellers, which they're fantastic sellers, they just leave all their stuff and people get so excited.
So in my emails, I say this is personal property and I deal with real property in the email with the bill of sale on it. But if I don't, one time I had this huge thing on some stupid couch that somebody thought was some designer piece of crap. And after that, bill of sale always saying, and this is personal property, zero value. And then it's come back up because then you resell the house for the people and they say, well, I paid $10,000 for the furnishings, and I'm whipping up my paperwork and sending them nicely the email going, you paid zero for this crap. You know, I mean, it comes up, and if you're working with snowbirds, which I work with a lot, they leave all their stuff, everything, dishes, bedding, everything. You know, they leave it, and people argue, especially rich people. People with money argue over the stupidest things in the whole world. Like,
Light bulbs.
I want this, yeah, I want this. This one with the designer fixture in some guest bathroom. It looked like something I could go buy at Home Depot, and I'm going, where's the designer fixture? We're all trying to figure out what the designer fixture was. It was some stupid gold thing with a lampshade, and I thought, that's a designer fixture. It's not even signed. You know, I mean, they argue about the stupidest things. They didn't leave the yellow bedspread, they changed it to blue. So that's.
Oh,
what I
yeah.
started doing.
But that's why you have to be very specific. That's outside your pay grade. Now, we could go into hours of that, but that's actually covered under section 1F of the purchase contract, which is fixtures.
That's true, yeah.
Okay, so let's move on to the,
Sorry.
no, you guys are great. It's just, we have a lot of pages here that I want to make sure you're all aware of these items. And I try to always do what I always promise y'all, which is an hour. So if you have something to add though, please stop me and I'm happy to have you add. And now Barb already brought up that this form can be confusing, and your next form is the Adult Community Advisory and Addendum. The We Serve Association, West South East Valley, created this addendum, and really it was created while before We Serve was created, which was known as WeMar. WeMar has a huge part of our active adult community in Maricopa County that it oversees, which is the Sun Cities, Pebble Creek, and the list could go on and on. I mean, we could sit here and name active adult areas for hours. Now, Sun City phase 1, 2, and 3
When did this come out?
years ago now, 2000 and something.
Okay.
I don't remember. It's been quite a few years. And if you're not a We Serve member, you wouldn't have known about it because it's specific. But just if you are working in an area and you're a Phoenix member or a Scottsdale member, just know all you have to do is ask a We Serve friend to get this form. Not all Sun City phases have HOAs. Period. Some of them are elective HOAs. Not all are mandatory HOAs as well. Sun City West is known for that. Sun City West is also, there's a spider that's just chilling. We'll name him George. Sun City West is also known to be really, really much larger than you can assume from the open eye. So this form was created to say, hey, there's certain addendas and information you need to know. Right, there's certain information you need to know, and there's certain fees that are paid, rather if you're a part of an HOA or not a part of an HOA. Barb said that this gets really confusing when it's done in tandem with the HOA addendum because of the bottom half. Okay, so either you put all the fees on the HOA addendum if an HOA does apply, or if an HOA doesn't apply, you could just say see HOA addendum and list them here, or you just list the rec center fees here. Okay, so don't double dip and have them confusing. They need to be the same. But you should only be disclosing capital improvement fees, transfer fees on one form, not both forms, right? Because then it seems like double fees. So be really, really careful with that. But this form should be being utilized in all areas that have active adults. If you're a We Serve member, in my opinion, because it's another disclosure. It's just saying, hey, you need to know these things. They also are saying, hey, we have an exemption to fair housing laws here because we're an active adult area, and some are 45 plus, some are 55 plus. Some you're allowed to live there as long as one occupant is over the age if you're 18 plus. You know, there's a lot of things that they need to know about. Everybody good with that? Did I sum that up like you wanted? Pretty good with the piece? All right. Now, the next form is being revised and will be out in July. But it's not being revised to the point where it's not going to be all the same basic concepts. Please know this form like the back of your hand. What is being added to the additional clause addendum is the wholesaling disclosure based on the new laws that came out last year, saying that if you're involved in a wholesale purchase, it must be disclosed to the other party that this is a wholesale purchase or a wholesale sell, right? So now we've created actual language to help us make sure that's disclosed for Realtor members. But what I love is, again, non-refundable earnest money is listed here, but it says pursuant to the due diligence section of the contract, which is all of section 6. Due diligence goes all the way until close of escrow. The pre-closing walkthrough is part of their due diligence. So please note, non-refundable is not, after the inspection period is done, it's non-refundable. It's much larger than that. So keep that in mind, because you could take this exact language and also change it to once the buyer inspection notice and seller's response timelines are completed as stated in section 6. The next thing I think you guys need to always stay on top of is the appraisal shortfall and the waiver of appraisal. Please be careful when the frenzy is coming back. A mini frenzy is here. Things are moving. People are waiving things. Be really careful to understand that a seller is never required to reduce the sales price, period. So many people misunderstand the shortfall. Well, they agreed that they would reduce to 10,000 over because the buyer's paying 10,000 over. I'm like, no. They agreed that the buyer could pay 10,000 over. Anything outside of that goes right back to the appraisal contingency of the contract, right? The verbiage of what these are called are changing, but the concept remains the same. Okay. Survey, I've seen a lot of vacant land sold lately, and I've seen a lot of houses with lots of land sold lately. The Alta survey is intense and can take a lot of time. Make sure your buyers have seek guidance from a surveying company to decide if that's the kind of survey they would like done, or if they just want the boundary survey. I'm going to let you know Alta surveys based on obtaining the different kind of title insurance can take a long time, and you're not closing typically within 30 days. Hey, Art, could you kind of speak to Alta owners insurance and why we might need that special survey?
A lot of it is because we're gonna be insuring the land. We're gonna make sure the property lines are correct. There's no encroachment over property lines, and without a survey, we can't do that. So without a survey, we can do just a standard title policy, which is pretty limited. But if you want an extended owners and better coverage, we would definitely need a survey, so we know where property lines are, easements, and those kind of things are at.
Yeah, and it says boundary encroachment and survey exceptions. So make sure your clients, if they're buying a property that these would fall within, understand, and get them with a survey company to understand the differences, and your escrow officer to understand the differences of the title policies. Tax deferred exchanges are coming back like there's no tomorrow. They've been here, but now it seems like they're more of a topic again. People are selling and then they have to buy like type properties. It doesn't cost the other party anything when somebody's doing it. It's a disclosure per statute. So make sure it's being done. And then the one that I was kind of like, so I chaired the committee that changed our form, which was fun. It was really cool. And by the way, I got them out an hour and a half at every meeting, and they were like, we spent 4 hours on with the last chair on this topic. I was like, not with this one. We are done. I'm not feeding you, leave. I didn't realize that the water clause in here is such a significant clause that was added to the additional clause addendum. A lot of outlying areas outside of Maricopa County utilize this last clause, and I see us utilizing it more and more often moving forward. So just be aware, it's here. Please pay attention to the water things coming out. Rio Verde is being looked at right now by several departments within the government to say who created the problem. Was it the public reports that were approved? In the subdivision reports? So that would fall under the Arizona Department of Real Estate. Was it, the builders? They didn't follow this. They gave faulty information. Or was it the realtors who didn't disclose water issues? Or was it the consumers who just didn't read what was given to them but signed off on it?
It's up to the listing agent to put that, to disclose that, right? If they're like Rio Verde.
It's actually up to the seller. It's up to the buyer's realtor to make sure the buyer understands how to research it.
Okay.
If the seller has not disclosed it, that they have, these issues going on in their area, and it is something that's commonly known, then yes, it would fall on the listing agent's competency to say, hey, I'm working in this area. I should know to give basic disclosures.
Right. Side note, I was just there yesterday.
Uh-huh.
And was shocked. There's all these new builds going up.
In Rio Verde.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they're real, like high end.
Beautiful.
Super high end. I was
And-
driving through, I was going,
Yeah.
oh my God, they're everywhere.
And buyer beware, right?
Yeah.
Buyer investigate, you can Google these topics and they all pop up. Now, I will tell you that I've been to a lot of conferences in the last year that have water as a main topic. And the lady, I can't remember her name, but she's like a water engineer, something, from Freeport McMoran, blew my mind. Like, first of all, Freeport McMoran, I'm not a big fan of that company, but that's personal reasons on politics. But then, so I was already like, oh, this lady's going to be like, blah, 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 and annoy the crap out of me. I'm not gonna believe anything she says. Oh my gosh, she was amazing. And she's all about water resources and water planning. And she said, you guys, we don't have the issue they keep putting out there. And Rio Verde has always had this exact same issue. Hauled water has always been how they got their water. And so she was going into it, and groundwater and all these great things about Maricopa County and how blessed we actually are. And I was just like, and she was showing the diagrams and the stuff, and I have to go research it for myself, of course, but I was like, finally, not a naysayer, and so it's not a new topic. It's just a topic because they keep building.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about the other day, like how often I turn on my faucet.
Right.
And I was like, maybe I should stop doing that, but like I was actually thinking about, because Susan's working on it. I mean, Madam Commissioner's working on it right now. And and I know she'll let y'all call her Susan. She's really a cool cat. Oh, she'll be here on Thursday, by the way, if you come. But she was like, Mandy, this isn't new. Like, so how many buyers just decided to not read and then blame somebody? But then again, how many developers decided to turn something in and get it approved that might not be real too? And then who investigated it to approve it? Yeah, so it's a lot. It's like the short sale days when we had that dump and they're like, it's the realtor's fault. They just wanted money. And we're all, I didn't read my loan documents. All right, so buyer contingency addendum is your next one. If you receive a pre-qualification form and you represent a seller, I trust that everybody at this table would take time to read the pre-qual, correct? And now one of the lines on the pre-qual, it says, is or is not relying on the sale of another property. Yeah. If it's marked is, and there's not a buyer contingency addendum attached to the offer, should you be asking more questions?
Yeah, but where is it?
Should you allow your seller, and I really mean allow, I know they have full control, but Scott would just tell them, no, you're not signing this. Would you allow them to sign a contract without the buyer contingency addendum with the pre-qual box marked is?
No.
So,
Why?
well, because the whole deal depends on
Them selling
how
their
and how
house.
much they're selling their house for, and
Where
sometimes
it
they,
is.
sometimes they'll do a contract and their house isn't even up for sale, and they do a buyer contingency.
You need more information.
Yeah, you don't have enough information to set that contract.
It-
Why would you just request it in counter offer? Rather than blow off the offer, why don't you commit people into it and you counter back, you need this subject to approval. That way you've locked in the deal.
We don't know
Up
what it
to
is.
them
But you
now
don't know
to
what
apply.
the deal is.
Oh, but
Well,
if,
there, it's a counter offer. You're asking to clarify the deal in the counter.
but you could, because that way you could also write in there, buyer to provide buyer contingency addendum completed, seller reserves 5 days of review of the buyer contingency addendum once received, or 3 days of review with the right to cancel if they disapprove.
Rather than potentially killing the deal.
Or actually, you don't need the verbiage, because you can just say, upon receipt of that by the seller, the time periods in that document commence.
Yeah, it's all,
Stating that.
yeah, it's all about your negotiation tactic. I personally think it's either a naive agent on the other side and they didn't know about this form. And then you gotta go, oh yay, this is gonna be fun. Or it's someone that's trying to pull a fast one because they know that they'll be overlooked if the form's attached. Either way, the moment you sign a contract without them filling this out, there are no timelines. That means they have all the way until close of escrow to perform. Where the buyer contingency addendum actually has drop dead dates throughout it that are not curable at this time. Now, please note, this form is also being worked on. I don't think you'll see this form until October of this year, but please pay attention. It is a living document that's continually being revised. Extremely important to pay attention to. Also, if your buyer's purchase is a large portion of cash from the contingent property closing, what form should you use as a proof of funds? A net sheet. So if they're selling their property, you can do an estimated net sheet. You have a few friends here that know how to make them. And also you have tools in ARMLS that allow you to make a net sheet and just say, hey, I just want to make sure there's enough funds coming from that sale. Or sometimes they'll do an all cash purchase contingent on theirs closing. You're like, how do I know you don't have 10 liens? You know what I mean? And you won't know. But at the end of the day, if you could have a net sheet to utilize as that proof of funds, it makes your sellers feel a little more secure that at least you've looked at the money.
Why would you want to accept a contract if it didn't have this, if it were contingent?
Why would you?
Why would you want, well, in order to counter it, you're technically accepting what they're saying, pending them giving you this addendum within an X period of time.
Well, you can reserve a right of cancellation, unilateral right of cancellation for your seller within so many days of receipt of it.
Okay.
So it just depends. Because if it's a naive buyer agent, right, you could really shut them down really fast and not understand what the next step is.
Mhm.
But then if it's just someone trying to pull a fast one, right, you always know how to gauge agents on the other side.
Mhm.
Yeah, you just go, wow. So yeah, you have been in for 7 years. So this is your first transaction. Lovely. Let me help walk you through it. I'm a team player. At the end of the day, we're not on defense. We're all on the same team trying to get to close. We're just trying to make sure our clients have what they need.
Thank you.
Solar addendum. Anytime you do something like that, though, you need a unilateral day, some days for the seller to make sure that they're comfortable to move forward. Solar addendum is something that should not be overlooked. This is owned or rented, or even if it's paid off, I need this done. There are so many things that need to be looked into by a buyer, and a seller needs to disclose. And this goes over those documents. And it's just an extra disclosure item. I mean, the more we don't do that's considered a standard of practice, the more at risk you are. So I was trying to help someone the other day and they got a little nasty with me because it was more paperwork. That is my paperwork. I said, it's your license and that's just a little bit of paperwork. It's called inactivate. Like I was so put off because I'm trying to CYA, right? I said, my job is to also protect your license in this company, as well as follow the lawful instructions of our clients. By you not doing this, you're putting our brokerage at risk and the client at risk, and I don't need to work with you. I mean, that's how nasty it got because it was, I don't want to do, it makes no sense to me. And I was just like, well, it doesn't need to right now because I'm telling you to do it. And then I'm happy for you to come into the office and help. us.
5 more days.
It becomes a big issue.
Yeah.
Lot of transactions.
In the UCC filings and everything else that goes along with this, we need our clients to read and understand. The biggest one outside of UCC filings, which is how they file the lien on the house, which will affect the lending part and the escrow part, is the transfer fee discussion on 47 to 49. There is always some fee from the solar company to make $1 on a human being.
And it's
Um,
cheap.
No, and so we need to discuss who's paying those transfer fees up front. Do not put this off for later, because then the buyer's eating them and the seller's walking. This is how it's gonna work, because the seller's like, well, I've already done all of this through the buyer's inspection notice, right? And I know all your sellers, when you represent a buyer, just elated to pay more fees.
Oh, yeah.
And just FYI, from my experience, the sooner you can get it done and done with them, because they're not on your timeline. They don't care what your closing date is. We had one that got delayed by a week because they kept saying, oh, we don't have this. Oh, we don't have that. Oh, you sent it to the wrong department. Oh, yeah, we got it. But you sent, we went around and around for a week past the close date.
A lot of work.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of buyers having to work with the sellers together to get it done, which doesn't always happen.
It's a lot of work. And if the house is less expensive, I mean, I've done a lot of expensive houses, I've done one a less expensive one. We got hung up with a credit score fee.
Right.
They didn't have a credit score that could absorb what the solar company wanted. And it was crazy. We had this argument back and forth on the credit score fee.
So that is something that you
Yeah.
can talk to your sellers about prior to, prior to even listing it, what those parameters are, because I know my lease doesn't have a credit score parameter, but there are leases that do. And knowing that upfront really helps mitigate some problems.
Yeah, and that review of the actual solar agreement is so important, because some, when they're paid off, they go away. Like they take the solar panels away supposedly. Now, I don't know if it will always happen or it doesn't, but just be aware. On-site wastewater treatment facility addendum. Anytime you hear the word septic, this is your poop addendum and I need you to use it. Now, when I was in the hospital, my mother-in-law bought me the book that says everybody poops. So this is important for everybody. Every animal too. So I want to make sure you guys are using it properly. And a big question seems to be, hey, how do we not fulfill this? Like, how do we, they did a pump in an inspection 2 years ago. Can't we just use that? Or the system is no longer in working order, or, all these different situations. This is through the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality. This is not ours to say if there can be an exception or not. Typically, the answer is no, no exceptions. Go to ADEQ's website for information. Do not use the word septic. Use the word on-site wastewater treatment. Put resale in, and you will find a whole bunch of great information. But everything on this, when it comes to timelines, is because of their rule sets. So when you look on lines 10 through 12, it says that at the seller's expense, it will be done within 6 months prior to close of escrow, but no later than 20 days after contract acceptance. And the reason it's 20 days, because the rule set from ADEQ is actually within 6 months of close of escrow, okay? But this is because if you want to close and there's issues found, right, we need time to get them fixed. This is at the seller's expense. I have had so many realtors through the years, unfortunately, say, well, why isn't the buyer getting it done? And they represent the seller. I'm like, because it's not the buyer's job. It's the seller's job. It then goes into document delivery, repair costs, functional with concerns. I mean, there's so much that goes into this, and this is a separate timeline than the buyer's inspection notice. Buyer has 5 days to review that inspection report. Okay, buyer has to feel confident with those leach pads. The things we learn. The weirdest words that have ever been used, leach pads. Ugh. I really think of leeches.
The other very interesting thing is there's some really nice neighborhoods in North Scottsdale that are on septic. And so pay attention. You might look like you're in a neighborhood and you might make this assumption, but they're on septic.
I grew up in Fairfield.
Golf
We had
Pinnacle Peak is all septic.
and a pump.
And parts of Phoenix over time, to both of your points, they transitioned most of the neighborhood, right, to public sewer. But we've had situations in our state where they're still on septic, but they've been paying a sewage bill. So the seller really doesn't know. So that inspector that you use is so important, because there should be some signs that it's septic. But I actually helped support a realtor at one time that sold a house in Phoenix. And she was paying a sewer bill the whole time she was there. And it was the subdivision was changed over before she ever bought the house. And the house was built in the mid-70s. And they never changed that property over. And then after selling the property about a year later, they found out that they were on septic, not sewage. And we never did this because she truly thought, I paid my bill. And they came after her. Right. And so it's always a really interesting discussion. Plumbing is not as easy as checking a box on a contract, or it's a discussion to go, hey, you know, this is an older area. How have you verified that you are on public sewer? You know, Frank Dickens always taught a class, and he taught it as the marshmallow class, where you flush a marshmallow and you watch it go by. I ain't doing it. I'm not doing it. But I mean, there's ways, right? I'm from Michigan, and we had roots that went into our plumbing system at home, and we used to snake. I mean, I remember being a teenager, so gross, and having our plumbing come up on the front yard and having to be out there with my mom snaking her house. And every time they taught a class on the marshmallow test, I'm like, I don't think you've ever dealt with sewage then. I am out. I've dealt with it. But there's more questions to be asked. It's like, call, verify with the city. The problem is, if they verify, get it in writing, right? So they can prove that they did everything to the best of their knowledge to make sure the home was on what they were disclosing.
How long had she lived there?
She lived there for like 10 years. She lived there like a decade. No, which was a problem because it now needed to be replaced. But the people, unfortunately, what happens in my experience is when a buyer who is now a homeowner feels harmed, they don't come after to make themselves whole. They come after to make a point, you know, and they actually didn't win that case against her because they were like really far reaching on it. And she had offered to go in halfies with them to have it fixed from the very get-go. And they just wanted more and more and more. And they kept piling things on and making things out of nothing, which actually harmed them in the long run, which I was like, greed does not win. Okay. Now, the next one I put in your packet for you to be aware of is my favorite one. It's like, all right, I'm just gonna say it's the redheaded stepchildren child of the addendas. If the home is rented out, you must complete the residential income property addendum. It says 1 to 4 units because anything over that is no longer considered residential. Therefore, if you're not a commercial agent, should you be doing it? Maybe not. So this also has an additional seller property disclosure statement that goes with this document, which again will have its own 5-day review period. It goes over all the copies of the financials. It goes over how deposits are going to be handled. Please note that I only have 1 page of it in my little thingy. Okay, well, maybe you guys got 2 pages.
Yeah,
No,
we got
yeah,
two.
there
Here's the second page.
Okay, fantastic. I don't have it, but as long as you have it, I'm happy. And you are not, oh, you're all good. You are not a property manager. A listing agent, a buyer's agent are not property managers. Proper disclosures do need to be given to the tenant. That comes from the landlord, which happens to be the seller, or if the seller / landlord has a property manager. We do not handle deposits. We do not send notices. We do not do anything outside our contractual obligation, okay? But they must. So I need you to know of a few websites. One website is the Arizona Department of Housing site. So that's Arizona Department of Housing. When you're in the Arizona Department of Housing site, if you go to the search bar and you put in Landlord Tenant Act, it will bring up a tenant advocate number. It will bring up the Landlord Tenant Act. This is where we push a tenant, right? Is that tenant advocacy number, not us. The Landlord Tenant Act is a good place for both parties. For a landlord giving proper notices, please utilize Dr. E. Victor, all spelled out, .com. They have like so many forms already created for landlords to be able to utilize.
What's that site?
DrEvictor.com. That's Hall, Holiday, and Holiday. It's a great site to utilize. But again, we do not fill them out. We are not property managers. But this is our wheelhouse. Our wheelhouse is making sure the proper addendas are incorporated with the contract.
So this form, if the property's is currently rented and it's gonna stay rented,
Or
Or-
even if it's currently rented, must be filled out, even if they're gonna move out in a month. If they're gonna live there longer, then the disposition or of deposits, right, like would take place, like they're gonna live there longer than close of escrow, it needs to be done.
okay,
Now, if the disposition of deposits, which happens after a tenant vacates a property, can be done prior to close of escrow, then there's nothing to worry about because the home should be substantially in the same condition it was, right? And it should be disclosed as being rented, but else should be disclosed they're moving out. But what happens when they don't leave?
right.
Right? That delays the whole thing. So if you represent a buyer in the contract, you would say the tenant is to move out prior to close of escrow and all deposit monies and any other contractual obligations between the tenant and the seller will be handled prior to close of escrow on the actual contract. So, but let me just tell you, most of the time it's not. And most of the time I see agents writing in the additional terms of our contracts, information about the lease. We'll provide, guys, it's covered. Don't reinvent the wheel. Use the form. The form is with you, just like the force. And
So
today,
would you
discovered.
use this form on a buyer from California who's buying a house to then rent it?
No, because it has nothing to do with that.
Nothing to do with
It's
us.
only to do with current renters. But thank you. That is, what would I give a buyer who's buying a house to rent it? I would give him a lease owner's advisory from the Arizona Association of Realtors, so he could research everything he has to legally do with the,
And a copy of the
county-
landlord tenant.
well, definitely that link, but that's actually covered in the lease owner's advisory as well. The next 3 documents I gave you are all to do with seller financing. The reason I gave you 3 is because there are 3 and you need to know what ones to use and when. So the first one that you have, I want you to circle on it. It's on the top of page 1. So you have a disclosure that goes to the buyer and the seller, really the seller. And then on the top of page 1, it says seller providing for only one residential owner occupied. So keywords here, it has to be owner occupied to use this form, and the seller can only be doing one of these within a 12-month period. So a lot of the time I get, well, this is the only one they've ever done. Cool, this is the form for you. As long as the buyer is going to live there, owner occupant. Asking somebody if this is going to be their primary residence is not against the law. Primary occupants, investors, secondary occupants are not protected classes of humans.
So where is that written on the form?
The very top,
No,
the next page. So you're gonna get a little confused.
Yeah.
Yeah, right there. So you're gonna get a little confused in your transaction desk or in your SkySlope forms, because you always have to know to go to the second page, which is really page 1, to see what one applies. But please note, they are in this order as well in your forms library. So the first one, owner occupied 1. It then goes over, lien positions. If the buyer is obtaining a loan as well as doing a carryback for a certain amount, the carryback with the seller will always be in second lien position. Please do not allow your seller to agree to it without advising them to obtain legal advice. Because if they foreclose, what does the second lien get? They're out. So be very, very careful with that. I hope the new managing broker spends some times if carrybacks get more popular. I know I've done it a few times to show you guys how to calculate the amounts. However, I would really urge you all to buy a mortgage calculator or to download an app on your phone. I know a lot of you understand PITI, but it's not that fun to calculate on paper. I like to use my little special calculator. Also,
There's a lot online too. A lot
Oh,
of
yeah.
calculators online.
Amortization.
I really like mine.
Mine too, so I go.
All right, so I stick with my little handy dandy
Hey,
calculator,
whatever works for you.
but you make your life the way you want, okay? The next form, and when you go to the second page, which is in my opinion, page 1, it's three or fewer, so no more than 3 within a 12-month period of owner occupied property. So again, primary residence, owner occupied. This is a disclosure from the seller to the buyer that they've done this before. They're doing it more than one time. The seller is a natural person or an organization, including a corporation, partnership, cooperative, estate, trust, or government unit. Seller owns the property securing the financing. Seller has not constructed or acted as a contractor because they don't want any liens against the property. And the buyer, again, is a natural person and dwelling as a primary property. So the disclosures are right there on the page of exactly who can utilize this form. The last form is a non-consumer credit transaction. This is everything else. This is vacant land. This is non-primary residence. These are disclosures between the buyer and the seller. And the top page is, hey seller, this is what you have to do per Dodd-Frank. This is your requirements for Dodd-Frank. All we can simply do is fill this out. Never, ever, ever say on your contracts for seller financing, escrow to determine. Okay, escrow determines and rewrites and then hopefully finds an account servicer or refers your people to an account servicing division based on the instructions that are provided. If you're off a penny or a dollar, it will be figured out with the account servicer, okay? Prior to close of escrow, but they need the instructions. Is this being amortized over 30 years? Is there a balloon payment in 5 years? Is there an impound account incorporated? Who's paying the taxes? Who's paying the insurance? Who has what insurance? Who verifies? Like all of that is part of these 3 documents. And so what we need to remember is that we have to be better than IKEA. We have to give clear, concise instructions because then escrow takes that information and makes magic happen and double checks us. Does that make sense?
And please make sure every space is filled out here with a 0 and NA something, because you can't leave it blank, because I can't decide for you what it is.
Yeah, go for it.
I have a question. So it says credit extended to acquire rental property. So multifamily is included, land. What are some other ones?
Anything that's not owner occupied. So say somebody was coming and they're only going to be here as a secondary home or a vacation home. That would be, or they're buying it and you're holding the note, but they're going to Airbnb it.
Okay.
Anything that's outside of, now, not commercial typically. I know it says acquisition of a warehouse. We shouldn't be doing that. Like this really should be, for our purposes, anything residential. Investors, second homes, all that good stuff. But vacant land people have a habit of using the first form, which says very bluntly dwelling. And I'm always like, I'm a little bit in pain. It says it right there. It says it right there and there and there. So we just need to know, vacant land is common to see. Seller financing, because what are they risking? Mother Nature, right? Yeah. And somebody building something that they get to keep or haul off now.
The most common thing missed on this is account servicer, which we can't, again.
According to the attorneys, an account servicer should always be involved, an account servicing. Please do not put TBD, put seller to provide, buyer to provide, or the name of the account servicer. TBD means there's gonna be a new mutual agreement, and what if they don't mutually agree? Right? Anytime you give more options to both parties to agree to, we just have issues, right? All right, short sale addendum. Woohoo, yeah, taking us back. This is used when? What's a short sale? Huh? That's okay. A short sale is when the payoff is more than what you can sell the property for, and there is a shortfall to the lien holders. And so if that comes about, I trust that Realty One Group, I truly do trust, they will train you on it if it comes back in a big way. If it comes back in a small way, which Art has one right now, you never really know when someone has overleaned themselves. And we do see it mostly with, like Art's dealing with a property that is been inherited. And why would inheritees want to like pay money to get a house, sell a house? You're like, yay, you left me nothing but debt.
A lot of it.
Are you sure they're not my family? Okay. Yay, I'm like, I ain't paying the bill. They're gone. So just note that this is something, don't take lightly. There is a short sale seller's advisory that also should go with this to the seller. But this is only on the contract side. There's also a short sale addendum for the listing side. There's also an agreement notice. This form needs to be known like the back of your hand if you're going to do short sales in any capacity. And if you don't, please immediately come in the office and sit down and go over the form. Okay, like we don't need timelines being messed up. We need buyers to understand that we have no control of the future. And we need to make sure if you're on the listing side, you know how to call and have proper information to get updates. All right, so those are all addendums that we just went over. Those addendums go with the contract. Escrow receives them, the lender receives them. That's why Barb said, do not give me personal property and do not give me repairs. Do not. Addendum A goes to them. The minute you withhold an addendum from the escrow company and the lender, that is mortgage fraud. Okay, so think twice on what tool is being utilized, which brings us into the most beautiful things in the world, notices. Escrow companies do not need a copy of a notice unless it's to do with a timeline and someone's canceling or doing something with it. A notice/disclosure is a unilateral notice to the other side. So the seller signs off saying, yeah, this is an update to that property. This is an update to my area. A buyer signs saying, hey, this is an update on my side. And Bree, I was thinking about this today, since you're going to ask, when would a buyer actually use this? Like, let's say they have a loss of job. They need to notify. I get that we typically just send an email, but is it supposed to come from the buyer? Hey, I just lost my job. Can the seller cancel on it? No, they still have all the way until close of escrow to try to obtain financing. Now they can say, I've lost my job and I'll be providing unfulfilled loan contingency, right? But at that point, just provide unfulfilled loan contingency. So any kind of notice that needs to be given from one side to another, which is an update and disclosures on their ability to close, the condition of the property, hearsay from the neighbors all of a sudden, whatever that item is that's coming from one party, that's when this form is used, not an addendum. Okay, this is our best friend. So anytime you hear someone say, well, did you sign it, send a notice? It's an actual form. It's my favorite form because agents were taking it upon themselves to give the other side the update. But did the seller ever sign off with our verbiage? No. And should it have been coming from the seller? Yes. Sellers give most of the notices, just so you know. And it is considered an update to the seller property disclosure statement if it's about the house, which opens what?
Another 3 days? 5, okay.
Yep, the change of condition. Great job, guys. The next one is the appraisal contingency notice. If the appraisal comes in less than the sales price, the buyer has 3 options, right? To renegotiate with the seller if the seller wants to play, But if the seller doesn't want to pay, this form comes into effect. The buyer can pay the difference or the buyer can cancel. I just flipped myself off. Okay. So that's what it feels like when they cancel. My bad. So this is exactly what this is saying. Hey, buyer received notice, they're canceling, or buyer has received notice and they're coming up with the difference. Okay, good form, always overlooked. You also can use a notice form, by the way, for unilateral cancellations. So seller gives that update that the house was now flooded, and the buyer's like, no, I know you have to return in the same condition, but I don't want it. They can say, based on this section of the contract, this is a unilateral cancellation, and that's when escrow would receive it. This is used a lot for appraisal contingency cancellations, where actually the appraisal contingency notice should be being used. Unfulfilled loan contingency notice. This was one of my favorite things to talk to you guys about today, and I know I've gone over my time slightly, so don't worry, you only have 2 more forms. A loan denial does not cancel the contract period. People who, I sent loan denial, that means nothing to me. It means that you're still trying to obtain financing in some way, buyer, until you fill out and provide the unfulfilled loan contingency notice. The unfulfilled loan contingency notice states that, yeah, we're canceling. Now, please note, it does not say I have to attach a reason or the loan denial. A seller in their right mind will request it though. And let me tell you why. It's because section 2 of the contract states why they can't cancel and obtain their earnest money back. So if it says lack of funds, I'm making their earnest money, aren't I? The seller potentially could fight for the earnest money.
Yeah.
Right? If it says forgot to lock in interest rate.
Or application withdrawn. I've seen that too.
Yeah.
You know,
Not acting in good concert, good faith. Good faith is the hardest argument to prove all day long, and they better have deep pockets to prove that one. But there's a lot that could go into this, so I just need you to know that this is the form that cancels the contract based on loan denial, not the loan denial.
Why doesn't it require a reason?
It doesn't require a reason.
Why doesn't? Should. That's a real unknown in the contract, that's a problem.
Yeah, it just says buyers unable to loan approval. I don't know, that's a good point. We should take that back to state.
If we call the lender, they won't tell you. They say that's privileged with our clients, and there's no requirement in the contract to actually provide a reason. And there's no real way for the seller to figure it out if people won't cooperate. It's a real defect in that, and it's never worked properly. I've submitted a request to AR of this, but they just told me to pound sand, so it's a problem.
No, you're right, but I wonder if their thought process, I just wonder, is to challenge escrow on it, because escrow is the one that has to determine, sorry, Art, what the contract says and how the earnest money lands, right? To argue that it was based on a certain situation, but you're right, that it really the seller should have the reason why they're not obtaining loan approval.
They do with the bidder requires a reason for canceling. And
It does.
Every document should require the reason they're canceling. To be consistent through everything.
You're right. I agree with you. I'm gonna take it back. I'll be there on Friday. Next week. Buyer, before I'm done, I will submit that one. Buyer pre-closing walkthrough. Always remember who you represent. Number 1, if you represent the buyer, the only time the seller needs this is if section 2 applies. Why would I give a listing agent a copy of my client accepting a property? What if something happens in the future? Did I just help that listing agent solidify their case without having to subpoena our side? I know that sounds really weird, but
We need one for the special.
no, you don't if you represent the seller. If you represent a buyer, but not if you represent a seller. And the only reason we need this when you represent a buyer is to make sure you did what the contract said, which is they had the right to the walkthrough. Either you did it and it was good, or you waived it and that's on you. Fool. 3 is called fool. That's a lot of zeros behind a comma not to have a walkthrough. Do not waive your walkthrough. You also do not perform the walkthrough on the buyer's behalf, correct? Because the buyer has their own opinions of everything. However, if section 2 applies, what does this act as?
Sure,
Sure notice.
Yes, and who needs a copy of it?
everybody.
Everyone.
Especially the escrow company to start counting the timelines, right? And so if something's not in a good condition, it can't be frivolous, okay? But if it's not in the same condition, and let's say the AC system is not working. Well, we're about to run into this. Should your buyer close?
No.
No.
The pool screen, I did that on my house. It was nice and clear, and I went to do my walkthrough and the pool was all green. I said, yeah, no. You make sure that, you know, is it green because you get to take care of it, or is it green because the pump broke down?
Yeah, liquid chlorine away.
Right?
All right. Don't get in that sucker, Art.
No.
Sizzle.
Black and white.
It's like Roger Rabbit, not the stuff. But yeah, so think about that. If you are a listing agent, always request a copy, but when they say no, thank you for asking, but unfortunately we don't provide that, don't push it. And with that, guys, those are our forms, those are our agendas, those are our notices. Please use them, please know them. And thank you for our last mastermind together.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mandy.
Thank you.
Record that, Mandy?
I did. It is